Antique gold lamplight, a pistol level at his chest. From the doorway, Bella screams, "Julian!" Too late. Desmond Cole holds the pistol steady. His thumb whitens on the hammer. He has waited a long time for this room. Julian does not move. The gold light finds the scar above his eye. He remembers everything now and says nothing. She is only a schoolteacher, but she is already running into the gold light, screaming, "Julian," before the shot comes. The smug half-smile thins. The muzzle levels across the empty gold air. His polished menace holds the whole room still. Lot 7. A dried blood leather tag, faded gold at his wrist, the only name anyone gave him for a year. From the doorway, her voice breaks the gold silence. Julian, the only word she has left to throw between him and the gun. Her hand locks the doorframe. The gold room swims. She has come too far to watch another man disappear in front of her. His thumb is white on the hammer, one drop of pressure between the gold light and the dark. No one breathes. She screams, "Julian!" again, the sound thinning in the gold air, already too late, already out of time and air. The whole tableau holds in the antique gold. A gun, a silent man, one schoolteacher screaming, "Julian!" across the marble. The hammer drops. A white muzzle flash swallows the gold room whole. For one frame, no one exists inside the light. Damien was already moving before the flash. A shoulder thrown across the empty air. His navy suit a dark blur through the gold. The round takes him instead. Dry blood red blooms across his navy shirt. He gave his shoulder for a man he barely trusted. Desmond's smile cracks as the wrong man falls. The pistol hangs useless in the returning gold light. The room has broken his plan. Julian's eyes break wide. The man who bought his safety has just stepped into the bullet for him. No sound reaches him. He crumples across the marble. The gold light catches his falling shoulder. A protector's body folds where another man should have fallen. Dark red soaks the navy wool, the white cuff. The gold light polishes the wet cloth. Damien Kane is paying for a stranger's life. The space where Julian should have died is suddenly empty. Only the smoke drifts through the gold light, indifferent and slow. His guarded face breaks open. The protector's watchfulness stays in his eyes, even as the gold light leaves them. He does not cry out. The shot hangs in the gold room. Smoke, marble, 3 figures frozen. The silence rushes back in to swallow the flash. Julian's arm shoots out. He catches Damien before the marble does. The Lot 7 tag slides down his wrist as the weight lands. The Lot 7 tag slides down his wrist, faded gold on dried blood. It moves with the weight of the man he holds. Bella's knees give way. The doorway tilts toward the marble. The scream in her throat dies before it becomes another word. He holds him upright. The blood finds Julian's sleeve. 2 men stand gold-lit against the wall where only one should have been standing. The gold light gutters out. The room collapses to black. Every sound leaves with it. Who shot whom? The silence cannot say. In the gold-lit stillness, an arm fires outward, fingers close on the falling man's jacket before gravity can. The Lot 7 tag, dried blood leather, faded gold, slides loose down a wrist already streaked with someone's red. His light blue eyes hold the man in the navy suit, protector and stranger, one impossible second shared. Behind them, her knees soften. The cream cardigan floats forward as the floor rises to meet her. Antique gold light gutters across the marble. The room folds inward like a held breath finally breaking. Black swallows everything. Bodies, blood. The war for a man no one named, and not one sound survives.
3 months earlier.
She didn't own a gun then, or a fortune, or a single enemy worth a bullet. Only 31 glue sticks. Only a child's empty desk, a workbook full of helicopters, and a brother who wouldn't look up from his screens.
How did I end up in that room with that gun?
3 months earlier, the answer knelt on a kitchen floor, crying about a boy the state lost first. It was a zip pull ticking in a cold, expensive office, a desk that cost more than her whole year of teaching. It was the docks the Kane name pretends not to see, and a woman in wine-red silk who never spoke a word. It was a paddle raised on impulse in a hall of stolen things. A hammer falling on every cent she had saved. It was a mute man with light blue eyes and a leather tag, and the choice not to let one more person disappear. 3 months earlier began there, a backpack, a silence, and a refusal to look away. Everything after is the price. 3 months earlier. Bella stands in the glass doorway of Kane Holdings, a missing boy's backpack against her chest. The office exhales cold corporate blue, scrolling numbers no one in this room means to explain to her. Damien runs Kane Holdings the way their father built it, both hands closed, eyes locked on the empire. He will not lift his eyes from the screens. The backpack in the doorway might as well be a rumor. She sets the pack on his glass desk. The zip pull swings, ticking out the only sound the cold room allows. That small sound crosses the marble the way a child's voice once crossed an empty hallway, unanswered. His sister's grief is a frequency his trading screens are not tuned to receive. He keeps his eyes on the numbers. Her reflection in the glass looks small against an empire built to never look down at a missing boy.
Not now, Isabella. Yeah.
She doesn't wait, lifts the pack, and walks back through the cold blue glass. The last person who could have stopped her closes too. She crosses the cold expanse and sets the worn backpack dead center on his glass desk, the zip pull still swinging in the silence. The little brass pull swings once, twice. The only sound in a room worth more than her whole year of teaching. Damien doesn't lift his eyes from the trading screens, green and red cascading more real to him than a missing boy. His voice comes without his turning, flat, binding, the way he gives every order that costs him nothing. Wait.
I'm done waiting.
His hand stalls above the keyboard for 1/2 second, the closest thing to a flinch his locked posture will allow. She has already turned, her cream cardigan catching the cold blue spill of the screens before she does. He says her name like an interjection, finally looking up. Isabella, wait. Screens less real now, the desk more. She doesn't stop. The doorway takes her whole silhouette against antique gold beyond. The door begins to swing. The glass door breathes shut behind her, sealing him inside with the swinging pull and its small, accusing music. He stares a long minute, then reaches over and stops the zip pull with one finger. The room goes silent. Morning. 31 kids folded into a room built for 20. The radiator dead under the tall January windows. She threads between 2 small desks, taping worksheets flat where the buckled linoleum has split upward. Her glue sticks come from a jar of loose change on her fridge. She counts coins at the checkout like groceries.
Half of 8 is 4. Then half again?
A girl asks for a pencil. Bella hands over her last one and quietly keeps the nub for herself. January light falls gray and thin across the buckled floor. The children keep their coats on all day long. She kneels beside a struggling boy and walks him through halves with 2 torn scraps, patient as candlelight. Her own lunch is a granola bar eaten over the staff room sink. The donated printer is jammed again. End of day. She collects abandoned glue sticks, snaps the caps back on, drops them in the jar for tomorrow. She locks up alone, the room holding 31 chairs and the slow gold of dusk creeping over the buckled floor. Front row, second seat, Mateo's empty desk. His workbook lies open, 6 days untouched by small hands. She pages through the margins, helicopters sketched in careful pencil, rotors crossing the dotted problem grid. 6 mornings now she's dialed the number on file. Each time it clicks dead after the second ring. No one answers.
Mateo, it's your teacher again.
She closes the workbook over the helicopters and lays it back on Mateo's desk, as if waiting could summon him back. 6 days now. The same desk, the same open page. His pencil helicopters wait to be finished, and nobody answers the number on file. She reads the helicopters like evidence, rotor, cockpit, door. Each sketch finished, each day darker, and the line never picks up. The chair is still warm from yesterday's promise. She straightens the page the way you straighten a shirt on someone gone. She dials the number a sixth time, and a sixth time the recorded voice folds her into its indifferent dark. He is still gone. On the sixth evening, she takes the workbook home instead of leaving it. Some wait you stop trusting to an empty room. The clerk keeps his count in a spiral notebook. Biro, ruled columns. The laptops came with the building and never got younger. The screen's dead pixel stares back at her while the notebook marks the days. Even the machine recording absence is itself absent. 3 brothers, 3 rows of X, 3 empty desks last spring. She traces their names the way you'd trace a fault line. She asks where the brothers went. The clerk's eyes go to the door before his answer does. The work under the docks, he says. The work under the docks. She has heard the phrase only as weather before, something parents mutter at pickup, never to her face. She walks the empty corridor with the phrase loose in her chest. The work under the docks. And a name she cannot say aloud yet. 10 years of spiral notebooks line the shelf behind him. 10 years of boys who came and then did not come back to be counted. At the door, she looks back at the notebook, the dead screen, the shelves. Counting is not the same as finding. She already knows that. 3 brothers, then Mateo. The X's line up the way preventable things line up. She leaves the notebook where it cannot help. She watches the pickup yard where brothers used to gather. The fence keeps no one in. The gate keeps no one out. The docks do that. She takes Mateo's workbook and the clerk's spiral and walks down the stairwell carrying 2 thin books that, between them, hold every disappearance she can name. The principal tells her the school cannot help a child the state already lost track of first. He says it the way men say things they have decided. She does not nod. She does not thank him for the meeting. She simply stands because sitting any longer would mean agreeing. Home. She sits on the kitchen floor beside the jar of change that buys glue sticks and lets the failure have its hour. The jar that buys her classroom glue sticks watches her from the fridge. Even the small kindnesses are paid for in loose change. She washes her face in cold water the way you wash a shift off. Under the tap, the hour is over, and the next morning is already asking. Next morning she teaches fractions, a whole divided. What part of the child is missing? The numerator or the denominator? The lesson will not say. She kneels beside a boy shading half a circle. She tells him a fraction is what is left of a whole. She does not look at the empty row. At recess, she sits with her hand on his workbook. Through the door, the empty desk holds its place in the row like a held breath. She erases the numerator, then the bar, then the denominator. The board goes blank the way Mateo's chair is blank. Tomorrow she writes it again. She shuts the door on the desk, the workbook, the helicopters, the closure of a fraction. Tomorrow begins the count all over again. On the 6th morning, she stopped waiting. She put Mateo's backpack in the car and drove south. The backpack rode beside her like a passenger who couldn't tell her where to go. She drove past the last bus stop, the Kane name still acknowledged, then kept going. Past the glass towers, the city turned gray, then rusted, then forgot to be lit at all.
Someone has to look for him.
The docks rose ahead like a wall the city had turned its back on. She slowed between warehouses whose signs had been scraped blank, reading the streets for a child. She stopped where the pavement ended and the water began, and waited for something to tell her where.
I brought your bag back, Mateo.
Then she took the backpack and stepped out into the salt air because no one else was coming. She went to Damien next. Kane Holdings rose in cold blue glass above everything she couldn't afford. He ran the company the way their father built it. Both hands closed, every door shut.
A child is missing in the docks.
Let the folks in charge handle the docks.
She stood a long second in the cold blue light, but his screens had already taken him back. He turned back to the numbers as if a missing child were a line item he could refuse. The screens flickered green and blue, indifferent as the harbor that never gave anything back.
Tartar. He is 9 years old.
She walked out and let the glass door close behind her on its own cold hinges. Alone in the glass tower, he watched the harbor below and did not yet move. At a dark corner of the docks, she stopped, unsure which door to try, which shadow to trust. A woman stepped from the shadow in a wine-red dress, silent, watching her with steady, dark eyes. Without a word, the woman pressed a folded address into her palm and held her fingers closed over it. Her almond eyes held a defiance that had nothing loud in it, only the steadiness of someone choosing. Bella looked down at the fold, then up, but the woman was already dissolving into the dark. The shadow took her back, like the harbor takes everything, and left only the address behind in her hand. She wore wine-red silk, like mourning. She pressed a folded address into my palm, said nothing, and the dark swallowed her whole. Her almond eyes held no fear, only a steady, defiant warning. Then she turned and the dock fog closed behind her. I stood breathless at the wet corner, the paper warm in my hand, the taste of rust and diesel in my throat. Somewhere out there, children vanished into the work under the docks. She had just shown me which door to try. I tucked the address deep in my cardigan and walked back toward the running car, my hands no longer shaking. Charlie slid a clipped article across the chrome table, luxury goods trafficking under the docks, and watched my face.
Stop digging before someone buries you next.
Under the neon bell, the headline bled ink onto my fingers. Another unclaimed body, another lot by the harbor.
They erase people like you erase chalk. Walk away!
Charlie's calm lawyer's eyes held a warning her mouth had twice refused to give. Her gold watch caught the counterlight.
Don't make me identify your body, Bella. Please!
I folded the article into my bag, the address still warm in my pocket, and shook my head at her. She left cash for both coffees, touched my shoulder once, and walked out into the brass and chrome night. The waitress refilled my cup without asking. Outside, a black sedan had been parked a long time. I looked at Mateo's workbook, then at the docks beyond the rain-streaked window, and stayed. That night, I ignored every warning and drove past the lit district to the address she had pressed into my hand.
I'm going in alone. Just a schoolteacher looking.
The warehouse squatted behind chain link and rusting cranes, its dock door cracked open on a stripe of gold light. I left my phone in the glove box, took only my teacher's ID, and crossed the gravel in the cold. Inside the cracked door, dark suits, numbered paddles, antique gold lamplight pooling on a concrete floor. I signed a false name at the desk and took paddle number 9, my heart beating in my fingertips. Nobody looked at the cream cardigan. They looked at the cash I counted out in 20s on the counter. I told myself it was recon, to find Mateo's brother. But my hands were already lifting the paddle. The ceiling lamp swung faint gold across faces I would never see again, and the auction had not yet begun. I found a pillar in the back row and stood very still, making myself part of the marble and the shadow. By midnight, the gavel would fall on a man with a tag reading Euro 7, and I would raise my hand. The door swung shut behind me. Gold lamplight, dark suits, numbered paddles, a market for things no one should sell. I pressed my teacher's ID like a charm against my sternum and told myself I belonged anywhere I chose to stand. Stolen art, unmarked crates, goods with no names, each lot a small erasure, and every paddle up another consent. I was the only one in that room who hadn't come to buy. I clutched the badge like it could keep me honest. Lot after lot went down the gavel's throat. I couldn't move. I could only listen and wait for the name they'd saved. Every paddle in that room had money behind it. Mine had a jar of fridge change and a dead child's empty desk. I found a half-dark corner near a steel beam, planted my feet, and made myself stay. A schoolteacher taking attendance. The room had its own gravity. Gold light, cold steel, the hush before merchandise moves. I let it pull me in. Numbers climbed in clean voices. Men bought paintings, crates, futures. I stood there clutching a teacher's badge and pretended I wasn't afraid. Then the auctioneer lifted his ledger and a cold, clean voice cut through the gold light to read the lot I'd come for. The auctioneer's voice had no warmth in it, money dressed in courtesy. He opened the velvet ledger and read. He treated us all like accounts, each lot a transaction, each breath a sentence he'd already written. He weighed the room the way a butcher weighs cuts. Then his thin lips moved, and a number crossed the air between us. The murmur died. Paddles stilled. The gavel waited in his hand like a held breath before the kill. He read the lot I came for, Lot 7, and the gold light leaned in to listen. The two words hung there, weightless and obscene, and the room leaned toward the back of the hall where something waited. He didn't look at what he was selling. He never did. The ledger only needed a number and a name in his mouth. Even his silence had a price tag. He let the quiet stretch until a paddle rose, and that was the auction beginning. I watched the gavel rise and fall in his hand and understood. This was a man who sold people with the same breath as paintings. And then the side of the hall opened, and what they'd saved for last came forward, wearing a charcoal gray suit and a leather tag. Two guards dragged a man into the light, thin, silent. A leather tag stamped Oro 7 at his wrist, a scar over his eye. The tag read Oro 7 in dried blood and gold. He wore his erasure like a brand they'd hung on him at the door. His eyes searched the room like a man drowning looking up at a frozen lake. I couldn't look away. A woman in emerald satin raised her paddle like she was bidding on a curio, her smile a small cruelty. She wasn't rescuing him. She was collecting him the way she'd collect a vase, for the story, not the man. I watched him stand there like a thing to be bought, and I knew I would not let another one disappear. Two guards hauled him forward, gaunt, silent, a leather tag at his wrist, stamped in faded gold under the antique light. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. The thin scar above his left eyebrow caught the gold like a wound, still remembering.
50,000. A curiosity for my shelf.
She raised her number like she'd bought a vase, not a man. Red lips curling at the private joke of it all. The crowd murmured at the novelty. No one in that gold-lit room saw a person dragged up under the hammer. Then my paddle went up before I could think. Not for art, not for sport, but so one more wouldn't vanish. The numbers climbed, and I climbed with them, every $1 a year of glue sticks and change saved in a jar.
Sold. Lot 7 to paddle 12.
He called it Lot 7 like it was nothing. A row in a velvet ledger, a line neatly crossed in ink. A guard pressed a receipt into my fingers, then a brass key, and pointed without a word toward the back door. The paper was warm from his pocket. The key was cold. My hands were shaking worse than either of them. I had bought a man for my savings, in a warehouse under the docks, and the ledger closed without a sound. No one cheered. No one objected. The auction moved on to Lot 8, as if the floor hadn't just swallowed a life. I walked toward the side door on legs that didn't feel mine, the brass key biting into my shaking palm.
Room 7. Take her to him.
Room was bare. Gray plaster, a single bulb overhead, and the man pressed flat against the wall like a cornered dog. He flinched when the door opened but made no sound. His silence had already become a kind of dark armor.
My name is Bella. I'm not here to hurt you.
His light blue eyes tracked mine with a fractured searching, trying to place me, trying to place anything at all. He didn't take my hand, but he didn't pull away, and that small stillness was enough for me to begin. I'd taught frightened children for years. I knew the look of someone deciding whether the next person would hurt them. Up close, the faded gold Oro 7 on dried blood leather was a price tag nailed to a man someone had tried to erase. Not merchandise, not art. A person with a scar and a silence, and eyes that remembered something they couldn't yet say. I kept my hand out, breath shallow, letting the quiet do the work the whole cold room refused to allow.
Come with me. You're safe now.
I read the 07 up close, saw a man erased not merchandise, and helped him into my car, under the dockyard dark. The faded gold 7 burned into my thumbprint. I looked up and saw a man, not merchandise. His wrist wore what no person should wear, a price tag in dried blood leather, stamped 7. I turned the leather between my fingers, and the auction hall's gold light spilled away behind me.
You are not a lot number to me.
I steadied his arm and led him through the side door into the cold dock air, a free man. His knees buckled at the open door. I caught his weight and eased him down onto the passenger seat. The engine turned over and the warehouse shrank in the mirror. He stared ahead without a single word. Streetlights striped his gaunt face as we left the docks. I drove slower, afraid he would vanish. I reached across to buckle his belt. He flinched once, then let me like a man relearning touch. The 07 tag lay against my palm in faded gold on dried blood leather. A man erased, not merchandise, now mine to carry. Home. I cleared the spare room and folded clean clothes on the chair. He sat where I left him, hours passing. A glass of water on the nightstand. He never reached for it, never moved, never once looked away. He sat on the bed's edge with his hands loose on his knees, still as the carved chair across the room. The light shifted from afternoon gold to blue dusk across his charcoal gray sleeve. He didn't blink.
You are safe here. No one is selling you.
Hours slipped through that quiet room like water. He held the same posture, as if movement had been taken from him. I made tea. I didn't drink, and watched him from the kitchen threshold. He hadn't shifted a single inch. His hands lay open on his thighs, palms up, like a man waiting to be told he could move again. Night came down over the apartment. The hallway light caught the thin scar above his left eyebrow. I left it on at midnight and found him at dawn, still seated, still silent, still inside whatever dark held him.
What the hell have you done, Bella?
He froze the instant he saw the silent man against my spare room wall, the leather tag still on his wrist. His dark navy suit filled my narrow hallway. His guarded eyes went from me to the stranger and back again. Damien's voice dropped low and hard, the protective edge in his eyes sharpening. You don't know what you bought. I stood between my brother and the silent man and answered, I won't give him up. He told me I had bought something dangerous, turned on his heel, and left the three of us to the silence.
What have you done, Bella?
He'd had me followed since the docks, and now his eyes landed on the stranger I'd carried home, and the fury curdled into something colder. I would not step aside, would not fold my arms, would not soften my chin. I stood in that doorway like the floor of my own classroom, and behind me, on the edge of the spare bed, he sat without moving, a man listening to a fight he could not join, in a language he had lost. He demanded I hand the stranger over to the police. I'm not giving him up, I said, and for the first time in my life, I meant every syllable. Before he left, he caught the stranger's wrist and turned it, the way a man reads the brand on stolen stock. And on that guarded face, something flickered, a half-recognition surfacing, then drowning again, like light through deep water. And Damien's grip went still, the way a hand goes still when it has touched something it knows the name of already. Then his hand opened, and the height of him seemed to fold inward, and the room got very quiet for a long second.
You've bought something dangerous.
He turned on his heel and was gone, and I stood alone in the doorway with 3 silent rooms behind me and his words still in the air. The stranger lowered his wrist as if it had been burned, and the tag lay against his thigh like it had always belonged there. That night, I did not sleep. I cut cardstock into squares and drew the simplest objects I knew: cup, door, key, sky. For weeks, I taught him the way I taught my 9-year-olds. One slow sign, one picture, one patient repetition at a time. And he learned too fast for a man with no past, the signs rounding into clarity in days that took my students weeks. One quiet afternoon, I lifted a card from the stack and slid it across the table to him, smile on my face. And his eyes fell on it, and his whole body locked at once, color gone from his face, jaw set, breath cut short. The card was a helicopter, a child's helicopter, the kind in workbook margins, and he shoved his chair back as if the room had tilted. I rose halfway, hand out flat the way you steady a startled animal, and did not touch him, and did not speak.
Breathe. I'm right here.
Slowly his breathing came down and his hands unclenched, and his eyes went somewhere past the wall, somewhere with rotor blades, somewhere with sky. The next morning we began again, but he reached for the first card on his own, and his hand was finally steady. He learned the signs the way a deaf man learns them back after years. Fast, exact, the shapes already living somewhere in his hands. And I watched him, smiled before I knew I was smiling, then felt the unease beneath it, because a man with no past does not learn this quickly. Then one afternoon he took a pencil to a grocery receipt and began to draw with a precision no broken man should have had. A tailored suit, a pocket watch, a building with flags. And I understood, looking at them, that whoever he had been before Lot 07 had been someone important. At the kitchen table, he picked up a discarded pen and began to sketch on the back of my grocery receipt. A tailored suit took shape first, sharp-shouldered, drawn with the sure instinct of a man who'd once worn one. Then a pocket watch, its chain curled just so, the kind of heirloom passed down through generations of powerful men.
These weren't doodles. He was remembering something.
Then a flag-topped corporate tower rose on the paper, every line clean, architectural, perfectly remembered from somewhere far away. He wasn't doodling for comfort. The drawings were precise, ordered, the hand of a man who had built things once. His light blue eyes tracked the lines on the receipt as though recovering rooms inside himself, one wall at a time. He sat hunched at my kitchen table in that charcoal gray suit, too gaunt, drawing like an architect who had lost his blueprints.
He was someone powerful once, before the silence.
I stood at the window holding the receipt, 3 precise drawings, and no name beside them yet. Charlotte arrived the next morning with a yellowed society page folded inside her briefcase and laid it beside the sketch. Side by side, the pencil suit and the printed society photograph, the resemblance was no longer guesswork. Charlotte studied the two with that sharp lawyer's stillness, her deep brown eyes narrowing as the comparison hardened into certainty. Over Charlotte's shoulder, I saw the printed face, younger, fuller, but those same light blue eyes, that same thin scar. Her fingertip held still on the printed face for a long moment before she finally spoke the name into the room.
A man presumed dead. A helicopter crash over the harbor 3 years ago.
I'd never heard the name, but somewhere inside that gaunt, silent man, the name had always been waiting. The society page bore a masthead 3 years old, an heir photographed on a rooftop, the city laid out beneath him. Charlotte opened her laptop to the archived crash coverage. The headline, "The Harbor, the search called off within the week." Every source agreed on the same bare facts. The helicopter, the harbor, the company passing quietly to the next of kin.
No body was recovered. The cousin stepped into his seat.
The official story held together just well enough. A helicopter down in a board transition week, the harbor swallowing every question whole. No splash witnesses, no wreckage, no body, only a drawn-out memorial and a quiet handover at the top of the company.
His cousin. We'd met the name before we hadn't known.
Desmond Cole, the cousin, the new COO, photographed smiling at the press conference the day the memorial was filed away and forgotten.
He inherited it all. The company, the seat, The clean cover.
The record said engine failure over the harbor at the worst possible hour. A board in flux. A body the tide never gave back. No wreckage confirmed. No remains returned. The harbor kept him, and the company passed quiet as a sealed envelope. His cousin took the seat the same week. COO to acting chief. The paperwork scrubbed clean. The questions never asked. Charlotte looked up from the paper and said it plainly. The cousin inherited everything the day the rotors stopped. Not a question, a fact. She held the screen closer, his own face 3 years younger, surrounded by suits, and beside it, a name he couldn't say. His whole arm began to shake. Not the room, not the cold, just him, remembering something his mouth still couldn't form. She watched the recognition bloom behind his eyes like a wound reopening. 3 years of silence shattered by one photograph. She didn't pull the phone back. She held it steady and waited the way she waited for her 9-year-olds to find the word. Then he moved, pen to receipt, fast and furious. Crude, radiating lines beside the image, the shape of a thing blown apart. A crude starburst, not art, not memory, accusation. The pen almost tore the paper where the cousin's smile had been. She picked it up, held it beside the photo, and felt the room narrow. The explosion he drew fit exactly around the man in the frame. She folded the drawing once and slid it into her pocket. Not proof yet, but a promise to a man who couldn't ask her for one. He sat back against the wall and closed his eyes. The silence he wore had cracked, and something was pressing up through the floor of it. She knelt beside the bed and just stayed. Not a word, not a touch. Just the quiet she would give any child remembering something too big to say. One tear, then nothing. She sat up straighter. The teacher had found the shape of the threat, and it wore her silence's old man's face. At 3 a.m, the dam broke. A hangar floor, a wrench laid wrong on a rotor, a voice he had tried for a year not to hear. The rotor spun, and the sky spun with it. The cousin's voice came clear for the first time in a year. Calm, polished, deadly. He lunged for the dresser in the dark. Pencil, notepad, the only language left to him, before the word could drown again. Letter by letter, the pencil bit the page. Not a sketch this time. A single word wrenched up from the floor of his silence. The pencil fell. His forehead met the wall. He had written the word that had been lodged in his throat for 13 months. Bella reached the doorway barefoot, woke by nothing louder than a pencil falling, and saw him crumpled against the wall with the pad turned toward her. She took the pad from his hand, the way she'd take a weapon from a child. One word on the page. She read it twice to be sure it was real. One word, charcoal on cheap paper, and the whole shape of his year became clear. He hadn't fallen. He'd been brought down. She stood slow, the word against her heart, and looked at him the way a teacher looks at a child she will not let be taken twice.
Sabotage. He said the word is sabotage.
Charlotte read the word and went pale. Then the pieces fell in. The crash, the mute survivor, the auction. Desmond Cole hadn't just buried his cousin. He'd sold him. Charlie spread the documents between us. Maintenance log, manifest, warehouse receipt. 5 years of clean lies finally coming apart. The mechanic's invoice matched a shell account. The helicopter's final service lined up with a board meeting Julian was never invited to. The rotor failed on purpose, and when the broken man clawed back from the water without a voice, his cousin saw an opening. No body to bury, no heir to challenge the signature, just Lot 7, led silent into a back room under marble light.
He sold his own cousin into that auction.
He learned Julian lived, muted, memoryless, and finished the job with a paddle number instead of a second bullet. I traced the warehouse receipt backward, a transfer paper, a signature, Desmond's COO stamp authorizing the sale of a man. Every page of it was corporate clean except the one that mattered. A human being inventoried between stolen art and unnamed goods. Charlie closed the file slowly. We had a murderer. We had proof. What we didn't have was a way to survive it. Then I saw it. The same dates, the same dock numbers, the same lots that swallowed Mateo's brother and the boys who vanished last year.
It was the same room. It took them all.
6 absent boys, 9-year-olds' older brothers, all logged on the same velvet ledger that auctioned Julian. The warehouse was the artery of everything. Every disappearance I'd written off as the city swallowing the poor had actually walked through those gold-lit doors and been sold. The glue sticks, the empty desk, the backpack. It all ran back to one building I'd walked into alone to buy a stranger. Mateo wasn't lost by the state. The state lost him, and the warehouse found him, the way it found every quiet body no one searched for. I stared at the dock map until the red lines bled into one point, a single door beneath the cranes where children became lots. Charlie named the auctioneer's shell, the guard company, the freight forwarder, every thread pulled tight to the same marble-floored room. The artery of everything. If I could ever stop it, it would be there. And if it killed me, it would be there too. I packed the file into my bag the way you pack a live grenade. Careful, deliberate, knowing the pin was already half out. The warehouse wasn't just where Julian was sold. It was where the whole quiet war on the poor was being run under chandeliers. Damien's call came at dawn. Not a question. A summons to Kane Holdings, glass towers above the harbor, the cold blue heart of the family. He'd traced the shells. Desmond's paper ran underneath the dock, trafficking like veins under skin. The same names, the same freight, the same silence. He spread the chart between us on the trading desk, every node pointing back to the COO he'd once shared a boardroom with.
Bella, you're out of your depth. This is murder.
I hadn't told him about the sabotage note. He had found the financial skeleton on his own. And now the bones were pointing at a killer. He told me to let the feds handle it. I told him the feds hadn't found Mateo. We stared at each other across the cold, bright desk. He summoned me to Kane Holdings at dusk, the trading screens throwing cold blue across the marble. He'd traced Desmond Cole's shell companies threading the same dock trafficking, names stacked like a fault line. He told me the dock ring ran deeper than stolen goods, deeper than I could survive.
Bella, you are out of your depth.
I answered his warning by laying Julian's notepad word between us on the glass. One word in Julian's shaking hand, sabotage. I let it sit there in the cold light. He read it and said nothing. The silence in that expensive room went on until I counted its weight. When he finally lifted his eyes, I saw the shift, the way a man rearranges a world he thought he knew.
If this is real, he's a murderer.
Then, quieter. And that changes everything. The room seemed to cool by 10 degrees. I held his gaze. I had come in afraid. I left the room knowing we were now both afraid. He turned his back to me. In that silence, we both understood the next move would cost us. He stayed at the screens long after I left, palm flat on the cold glass, deciding what to freeze. I rode the elevator down carrying that word, sabotage, like a live coal in my pocket. By dawn, he was freezing Kane assets that touched Cole's shells, every transfer buried inside a routine audit. Red hold markers bloomed across the ledger, quiet as frost. Kane's money was leaving Desmond's reach. He called a friendly auditor first, then a less friendly one. Everything looked like routine compliance. Across town, the Kane lawyer was drafting the framework that would hand every bite of it to the feds. She built the brief on trafficking, fraud, conspiracy statutes, each page a wall Desmond hadn't seen coming. She sealed the federal warrant request and tucked it inside a law textbook, spine uncracked. Nothing about this could be loud. Damien handed her the audit folder in person. One look passed between them that needed no words. When she'd gone, he stood at the screens with both hands closed, the way their father built this firm, shut tight. She drove the brief across the river herself that night. No courier, no signature trail, only the textbook. He sat with a glass of water he never touched. the audit holding its breath beside him through the dark hours. At the federal corridor, she held the book to her chest and pushed through. By morning, the law would be on its way. Single words began surfacing through his silence. Brother, gun, cousin, and I coached each one out of him. Each evening, I laid a card down and waited the way I waited for Mateo, patient until his mouth found the shape. He was learning the way my 9-year-olds learn to read, one brutal syllable dragged up from a year of silence.
Stop.
Prathing got down to Sumwadi want to stay us in Bartistimgar.
We knew what just spawning Tebel Turkin from popping seven to someone east today.
Brother.
The word sat heavy between us, and I learned not to praise what it cost him to raise it from the dark. Gun came next, dropped flat and hard, and the small kitchen went cold around the shape of that single word. I watched what each word pulled loose from him and said nothing, only kept the lamp warm and the water full. Cousin surfaced last, dragging the dark up with it, and his light blue eyes went somewhere I couldn't follow. His voice cracked the way a child's does the first time, and I pretended I hadn't heard the tear in it. By evening, 3 words lay in that room like unexploded things, and neither of us reached for the next card. A black sedan pulled up across from the schoolyard that afternoon and waited, windows up, for the bell. A man in a gray coat walked my hallway with his phone low against his hip, the shutter soft as a held breath. I turned the corner and caught him, gray coat, steady hands, gone before I could ask why my door was being photographed. His lens caught me mid-sentence at the board, and I smiled at the wrong face for the wrong reasons that morning. When the last bus pulled out, the sedan was still there, darker now, waiting the way only slow things wait. His thumb rode the shutter the way a thumb rides a hammer, and I understood the auction ring had found me. I stepped backward into my own classroom and shut the door, the children's fractions still warm across the board behind me. My hand stayed on the doorknob a long breath. Lot 07's new owner was asking questions, and the questions were following me home. At dusk, the sedan pulled away without hurry, its brake lights 2 red eyes I watched until they turned and went. That night, I locked the apartment twice over and called Charlie. Someone was counting my steps, and the count was exact. Desmond sat in a darkened office and turned a burner phone in his palm, the cold screen catching the polish of his menace. The photograph showed her, the schoolteacher, hand on Ashford's arm, as though she had decided to own what he sold.
Repossess the inventory.
His pale gray eyes stayed flat on the small screen, doing the math a COO does when a loose asset refuses to stay sold. The order passed without transcription. Desmond's voice carried instructions the way a ledger carries debt, exact and unforgiving.
Bring him back. Bring him back. Quietly.
He closed the burner one-handed and dropped it into a drawer already full of them. Lot 07 was loose and would be collected.
Repossess the inventory.
The burner phone held 2 faces in its grainy blue light, the schoolteacher and the ghost she had bought back from the auction floor. His smug half-smile tightened until it was no smile at all. The polished menace behind his pale gray eyes sharpened into something colder and final. He spoke the order the way he spoke all orders, low, unhurried, already moving on. And the inventory would be collected before dawn. She came home to find the chair empty where Mateo's backpack had sat for weeks. The zip pull silent now, the shape of it gone. In its place lay a strip of dried blood leather stamped with a number, the auction signature, left where she could not miss it. Her hand hovered over the leather and would not pick it up. The truth settled on her chest. They knew where she lived. She crossed to the window and parted the curtain a finger's width, scanning the parked cars below for a shape that did not belong. Julian stood in the spare room doorway, watching her scan the street, his guarded eyes tracking the curtain's edge without a word. The strip was the same dried blood leather as the tag on Julian's wrist, the auction ring signing its name in her home. She could not stay where the ring had already reached. She reached for her keys and for the one place they could not touch. She drove with both hands locked on the wheel, Julian motionless beside her, the city sliding past in streaks of cold blue and amber. She turned toward the one address heavier than the auction's reach, the Kane Holdings Tower, its glass rising cold and watchful into the night. The penthouse elevator climbed in silence. She had not called ahead and would not apologize for the weight she carried.
Get inside. Both of you.
He stepped back without another word and let them pass into the marble quiet of a home no Kane had ever hidden anyone in. Bella crossed the threshold, clutching nothing but the leather strip in her cardigan pocket, already knowing the apartment would be his hiding place tonight. Julian stepped past Damien without meeting his eyes, the Lot 7 tag sliding down his wrist into the narrow gold-lit foyer. Damien closed the door and held the lock a moment, as if the click of it were the only answer he had left. Bella held his gaze across the marble foyer and would not look away. She had brought the trouble he warned against to his door.
They left this on my table.
Julian stood very still beneath the antique gold sconces, and Damien understood the auction had followed them all the way home. He poured a drink at the marble bar and never raised it. His broad hand stayed wrapped around the glass, steadier than he was. By midnight, the penthouse lights had dimmed to a single gold candelabra. 3 figures breathed inside the highest locked room in the city. That night, the veiled woman in the wine-red dress returned silently and left a sealed envelope at the building's service entrance in the dark. Inside lay the auction's record ledgers, names, dates, lots sold, rescue returned by the woman who once pointed her toward the warehouse. That night, a figure in wine-red silk slipped down the service alley, a sealed envelope, held close, held quiet. No note, no name. Only the ledgers, names, dates, every lot the ring had ever sold, pushed beneath the steel door. She owed the schoolteacher nothing, yet this was the second doorway she had pointed Bella toward, and the first she could walk away from whole. Inside, the envelope lay where she had left it, undisturbed, unclaimed, heavier than paper had any right to be. Bella found it before dawn, thick, sealed, still warm from another woman's hand, and knew, without opening it, who had left it. Pages and pages of it, children's names beside dollar amounts, dates beside lot numbers, a whole economy of the disappeared in another woman's handwriting. She had rescued him back. The school teacher who bought a stranger, the stranger who once pointed her at the warehouse. She read down the column until her eyes blurred. Every name a child. Every lot a door that never opened again. This was the artery of everything. The boys, Mateo's brother, Lot 07, in another woman's steady hand, handed back without a word. Charlotte came that night with a folder and a name, a former auction guard, pulled from witness protection, ready to talk. The guard had walked the boys onto the auction floor himself, sold as labor, lot by lot, under Adrian's gavel. Julian had not been lost in the lots. He was a special order, hidden among them, sold by name. The guard named the man who signed Julian's transfer, Desmond Cole, COO of Ashford Global, cousin to the man he had erased. The signature was unmistakable. Desmond Cole, his own hand, selling a man he called cousin. Confession, ledgers, transfer papers, 3 walls of evidence stacked now in one quiet room. Charlotte said it plainly. The boys were sold, Julian was ordered, and Desmond signed for all of it. A name said once in a low voice, Desmond Cole, and the night on the docks became a case for murder. A confession in the house, the ledgers in the desk, and somewhere in the city, a man who believed no one would ever read either. She had extracted one guard from witness protection and a name from his mouth. Now the rest was a federal brief to write before dawn. Damien had called the Singapore number every day for 6 weeks and heard nothing back but a deadline. He told Bella their father had missed every call since the 2nd week. No political cover, no protector, no word. 6 weeks of silence from Singapore. Without their father, Damien said, they had no shield above the storm they had built. Augusta answered none of it. Not the family line, not the board line, not the number only his sons knew. Damien said it like a verdict. Without Augustus, every shield they had raised tonight sat under open sky. He had protected empires with those hands. Now the one shield that mattered was a man who would not pick up. He told her plainly. Their father had been silent 6 full weeks, and they were now the only name the ring could not reach.
Father's been silent 6 full weeks, Dane. We have no cover left.
Bella watches Damien's hand rest on the dark screen. 6 weeks of silence, and no name left to shield them. He had called every line he had. Singapore never answered, and the cover they were raised behind was gone. Without their father's weight, every door they knocked on would open onto Desmond Cole. And they knew it. In the silence of Damien's study, Julian lifted a newspaper for the first time in a year, lips shaping each printed word. The pages were dense with names, but one kept surfacing through the fog of fractured memory. Augustus Kane. He remembered an older man's steady hand on a boy's shoulder, a building with flags, a voice that called him by name. He reached for the notepad Damien had left by the lamp and uncapped the pen with a hand that no longer shook. First he wrote the name, Augustus, in careful block letters, pressing hard, as if writing could summon the man. Under it he added, family friend, 2 words simpler than the suits and ledgers that had erased him. The last line came slow. He would know. The closest thing to a plan a voiceless man could make. A year mute and erased. Now the silence was finally writing back answers he could not yet say aloud. 3 short lines waited on the page. A name, a bond, a plea. The first map drawn by a man finding his way back. Bella found him at dawn. A man who had read the world again overnight and rewritten his place inside it. Charlotte pulled the jet's flight log from a sealed file. The Singapore manifest listed a gate that never cleared customs. She cross-checked the tail number against the charter's own logs. 2 aircraft, 2 nights, 1 falsified destination. A filed fuel receipt placed the plane in Zurich, not Singapore. The paper trail had misled from the first hour. 3 charter offices. 2 denied the flight. The 3rd went silent mid-sentence and hung up on her name. She had the thread. A patriarch boarded for Singapore, diverted to Zurich, held where no one could reach him in time. Falsified manifest, locked down patriarch, a takeover needing the old man gone. Every piece pointed to one polished hand. She forwarded the trace to Damien at midnight, 1 line beneath. He wasn't traveling, he was being kept. 8 weeks held, long enough to finish a corporate funeral and bury every question that should have been asked. She called Bella before sunrise. If Augustus was held, the man in the spare room might be the only one who could prove it. By morning, the thread had become a rope. Federal grade, falsifiable, aimed straight at the people who sold Julian into Lot 07. That night, a gray-coated technician cracked Damien's building feed apart frame by frame until Julian's face caught the lens.
Repossess the inventory? No, Reich. I'll take them back myself.
Inside a parked sedan, gloved fingers crack the building's feed, and on the cold screen, Lot 7 walks. The picture clears for one breath. Lot 7, alive, sheltered behind Damien Kane's penthouse glass. A gloved hand lifts a burner, dials a number saved nowhere, and waits for the voice. Desmond Cole answers from a half-lit office, and the smug half-smile dies before the report ends. He learned Lot 7 eats and sleeps beneath Damien Kane, and worse, somewhere inside, he remembers everything.
I'll take care of him myself.
He shrugs the coat over his shoulder, a pistol already holstered beneath, and kills the desk light. No quiet repossession now. No paperwork, no ledgered line. The cousin would finish the job himself, tonight. He turned the lamp off and walked into the corridor of the building he no longer needed to rent. That night, Damien's phone lit a blocked number, and he answered the way his father taught him, without flinching. The voice was calm, polished, familiar, the kind of courtesy between men that only ever means a threat.
I'm told you shelter stolen property.
Between men like these, there is no preamble. The threat, delivered softly, is the only greeting worth giving.
One chance. Hand lot 7 back.
Damien's grip tightened on the phone, his guarded eyes hardening into the cold steel his father never had to teach.
I don't trade in stolen lives.
He ended the call before the threat could cool, then sat in the silence of what he just refused. On the deadline, Desmond Cole heard the verdict and felt the smug half-smile leave his face for good. There would be no second offer. He would finish what the hangar, the auction, and a year of silence hadn't. Damien moved them that hour to a closed cane auction house. One door, antique gold fixtures still hanging in the dark. The hall smelled of dust and sold things, numbered paddles stacked in crates, gold light falling only on the rostrum. Bella laid out water, a blanket, the last of her calm, then watched Julian remember the walls that sold him. One entrance. Damien threw every bolt himself and set 3 trusted men where the shadows met the marble. Julian's light blue eyes moved past the rostrum to a service corridor only a man sold here would remember. So they waited inside the gilded silence of a room built to sell people. 3 guarded breaths and one way in. Damien planted himself between the only door and the 2 lives his father's name had quietly made him responsible for. He drove them through blacked-out side streets to a cane auction house shuttered mid-renovation, where gold pendants still swung above the dust, and the only way in was one door. Julian crossed the cold rostrum like a man meeting his own ghost. The gold light he had last seen as merchandise now falling on him, unbound and remembering.
One door. One night. No one gets past me.
Bella spliced the building's old security eyes back to life, her teacher's hands steady at the kind of small, stubborn work that held her classroom together each winter. 4 corridors bloomed grainy and blue under her gaze. She mapped each dark hinge, every blind corner, the same way she once mapped the empty desk in her front row.
Federal warrant request. Hidden in the chapter on torts.
The envelope crossed hands between 2 women who had learned separately how piles of paper can shield a person or bury one, and tonight it might finally do both. She didn't explain the plan aloud. He answered her shoulders lean with the smallest nod, a grammar built over weeks of silent rooms.
We rigged every door. If they come, we'll see them.
Charlotte slipped back out into the dark with the whole of the textbook closed, every signed paper the law could offer already hidden inside these cold walls. From the front door to the cameras, it was 14 long paces of cold marble. Damien counted them back and forth while the gold light slowly thinned toward amber. In the hush before whatever was coming, the warehouse held the only 2 people who had found each other through a numbered tag, sharing one gold pool of borrowed time. Damien had staked the only entry against the night. The gold pendants slowed, the laptops blinked, and the long, cold hours began to tilt toward whatever the dawn would cost. If the pieces held through the long dark, the cameras would catch the men coming. If they didn't, the envelope was the only thing left to speak for all of them.
Hold your posts. Nobody moves until I move.
Julian drew the building's bones from memory the way a man trampled in a place remembers it, then stooped the pencil toward a corridor no floor plan had ever shown. Bella traced the hidden branch his pencil had struck, the one no auction ever listed. He only lifted his eyes toward the dark wall that had swallowed him whole. Damien read the secret corridor off the page as if a man who'd been auctioned here owned the place's true blueprints. That branch would be where the night broke in. In the back corridor, Damien's fingers found the seam Julian had drawn from memory. Behind the gold light and a thin wall, a door that the auction had never named waited. He had given them the building's ghost map. Now he stood quiet in the center of it, a man who had last walked the hidden corridor in chains. Bella watched the man she had bought with her savings stand in the building that had once sold him, every camera threaded, every piece quietly placed against the dawn. No one could breach this room without crossing Damien's post. He kneeled by the wall that hid the secret corridor, the loaded silence and the pistol's safety answering each other. On the grainy feed, a shadow bent where no shadow had any right to bend. Bella and Julian lifted their heads at the same instant, as if the building itself had drawn one sharp breath. It was the corridor he had been dragged through Lot 7. He raised a slow hand toward the dark where it began, and finally met the building on his own feet.
They're here.
Damien was on them before they could line the gun. Glass burst down the dark hall. A single shot punched the marble, and the auction house they'd hidden in became the auction house they'd have to win. The power died first. Every screen, every camera, every light. And the silence told Damien they were already inside. 2 of them came through the service corridor in the blackout. Damien hit the first before the second cleared the door. Glass blew inward from the service panel. Damien shielded his eyes and caught the second man's wrist before the blade turned. He dropped both and stayed on his feet, knuckles bleeding into his suit sleeve, already listening past them for more. Then a shot punched the hallway, one white crack, and the auction house they hid in became the one they'd have to win. He steadied his breath and walked toward the gold light at the corridor's end, where someone was already waiting for Julian. Bella pulled Julian behind a pillar when the lights went, holding his sleeve like she'd hold a child's hand in a fire drill. She listened to the fight she couldn't see. Glass, a shot, Damien's silence between them, and held the pillar like it was the only wall left.
You should have died in that accident.
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 You should have died in that accident. You should have braced that accident. You should have died in that accident.
You should have died in that accident. You should have died in that accident. Get a nod. You should have died in that accident.
From the side, in that gold, he looked like a portrait of a man who'd decided a long time ago that his cousin was already dead.
You should have died in that accident.
He said nothing back, and the silence he'd worn like armor hardened now into a wall he'd built on purpose. He didn't flinch, didn't duck. The man who'd arrived, blank and mute, let his cousin see that the year of silence had filled up again. The blankness he'd carried out of the hangar was gone. What filled it now was heavier, older, and aimed straight. He stood straighter than he had in a year, the mute ledger item reassembling into the man his cousin had tried to erase. The silence he gave back wasn't the mute silence anymore. It was a witness choosing not to waste a single word. What Desmond saw across the gold wasn't the terrified inventory he'd sold. It was the cousin he'd failed to kill, remembering every move he'd made. He remembered the hangar, the wrench, the spinning sky, the cousin's voice, every word, and gave none of it back. He answered the gun with nothing. The same silence that met her outstretched hand sealed him now, a wall his cousin's pistol could not crack. Every damaged mile of the last year lived in those unblinking blue eyes. He remembered the hangar, and it did not move him. The mute armor he wore the day she bought him had turned to something harder. Recognition without a single word surrendered. He told the dark room about the hangar, the wrench left on the rotor, the mechanic paid in cash, as if the walls owed him silence. He listed the crash like a proof of work, the falsified trajectory, the missing body, each detail offered to no one who would repeat it. He bragged to the lamplight that the crash was only the first draft. The unfinished man was easier to sell than to bury. Names, dates, lots. He laid the auction ring open like a ledger, certain no witness in that gold room would outlive the night. He admitted the transfer papers, his own signature, and the smugness in his voice curdled into the closest thing to pride he could still wear. He believed the only ears left were dead ears. So the whole architecture of the sabotage spilled out into the lamplight unchecked. The cousin's voice laid out the crash, the auction, the erasure. a full accounting given freely because he was sure of the silence to follow. He arranged the hangar, paid the mechanic, faked the crash, then sold the unfinished man to finish the job without a grave to dig. The confession tumbled out unchecked. Hangar, mechanic, weighs out a wreckage, the Lot 7 sale. Every word a nail he was hammering into himself. He believed no one in that room would live to tell it, so he told it all, polishing his own guilt in the antique gold dark. From the doorway, she lunged, hand flung toward him across the gold air. Julian! The tears already on her face before they were heard.
Julian! Julian! No, it can't be you! Why are you doing this?
The tears came before she knew they were hers. Julian! Grief and warning fused into one fractured syllable. She flung herself half into the gold room. Julian! A teacher's body doing the only thing left it could do. Her hand was the only bridge across the gold air. Julian! And even that half step was a lifetime too short. Before she understood the tears, she understood the name. Julian. The single word that would not wait for grief to explain itself.
A man's first name. Julian.
Julian. The last clean sound before the hammer fell, and the gold room swallowed itself in white. He was moving before the hammer fell, his shoulder across the gold air, the round meant for Julian punching into him instead. Dry blood red opened across his dark navy shirt, a protector's body arriving a half second before the bullet and choosing to stay. The hammer fell. A white muzzle flash swallowed the room end to end, and no one in it had time left to flinch. But Damien was already moving. Shoulder torqued into the space between the muzzle and Julian before the light arrived. The round found him instead, a bright dry blood bloom opening across navy wool where there'd only been a man a second before. He didn't move. He watched the man who'd bought his silence pay for it in a single half second of navy wool. Desmond's polished half-smile died with the muzzle flash. The wrong man fell, and his pale gray eyes were already recalculating. Bella reached from the doorway, not toward the gun, toward him, her body already failing her before the sound came back. Two figures met in the gold pool, one falling, one rising to meet him, and the whole room held its breath. Every sound left the room. The light stayed, indifferent, fixed on the shape of a man who'd chosen that half second to stay. Dry blood red bloomed under Julian's palm where he caught him, a stain widening far faster than a man could forgive. The Lot 7 tag slid down his wrist, a year's worth of silence and sail arriving in one small leather weight. He took his protector's whole weight and didn't set him down, held him upright as if the refusing could keep the blood in. Her knees gave last. Bella went down on cold marble with her hand still reaching, the way you fall only for someone already gone. The gold light guttered above them, the only warmth in the hall thinning to a thread, refusing, like Julian, to let go just yet. Desmond lowered the muzzle an inch, recalculating, the polished man working out, even now, how to make two deaths from one bullet. He held him and went still, and deep in his throat, a word he could not make began at last to make itself. The red kept going, past the lapel, past the clenched hand, a quiet river that a protector's body had chosen to carry alone. Three figures held the hall in that spent gold, two upright, one kneeling, and the silence between them had the weight of a verdict. He looked up into the face of the man he'd bought silence for, and the watchfulness finally left his eyes. His mouth opened on a word he couldn't make. "Damn!" broke out of him, the first syllable of a name. He tried the sound again, only the front of a word, dragged up from a year of silence like something dredged out of dark water. His lost voice found the seam it had been sealed along. "Damn!" cracked, then again, the silence cracking. And Damien, still held upright, heard his own name's first breath from a mouth mute a year. And the corner of his moved. He threw "damn" harder, A cracked human sound, not a word yet, but no longer the silence he had worn like armor. Bella heard it from the doorway, a sound that couldn't be speech and was, and her reaching hand covered her mouth instead. The year-long silence cracked in da, small, broken, human, and the hall belonged to the sound of it. A cracked sound left him. Damn! The first syllable of his protector's name. And his year-long silence broke at last. His mouth opens. Damn! A cracked syllable, and the year of silence breaks at last in the gold light. The sound hangs between cousins like a verdict. He remembers everything now, and the silence he wore is gone. From the doorway, Bella hears it. Proof he has come back to himself. And a crying, almost smile breaks across her face.
Federal warrant to Tane! Drop your weapons, now!
Now, the sealed warrant catches the antique gold light. Charlotte has been building this brief in the shadows for weeks. Desmond's polished half-smile freezes. The room he owned a second ago now belongs to the warrants in Charlotte's hand. One by one, the auction ring's men drop their guns onto the marble, steel ringing softly under antique gold
Move Tane. Left corridor now.
edges. For the first time, Desmond's calculation stalls. Every exit he owned a moment ago has marshals standing in it. Julian does not move from his protector's side. He watches the law arrive and finally lets the pistol-less heir in. Bella pulls herself upright against the doorframe as the marshals stream past. The night just tipped, and she feels it. Charlotte had rehearsed this raid in legal memos long before tonight. Now the memos wear badges and flashlights. A marshal's beam finds his pale gray eyes and pins them. The polished menace he wore for a year finally flickers out. Desmond thumbs the hammer a second time. His one clean chance to finish what the hanger failed to, aimed down. But Julian is already surging off his knees, a force that does not match the gaunt man Bella bought. His hand finds the wrist that signed his death. The gold light flares on his leather tag as they collide. Every hanger hour he lost floods back into his arms. The scar over his brow goes white with the strain.
You should have stayed dead, cousin.
Again, the strike lands. A force that does not match the gaunt man of Lot 7 sends the pistol spinning across the marble. For the first time, Desmond's immaculate posture buckles. He is suddenly a man with no weapon and no cousins left. Julian straightens to his full height. The guarded, disoriented man Bella met at Lot 7 is gone, and what remains remembers. One step forward, one step back. The power that signed his death away flips in a single lunge across the marble. From the doorway, Bella sees the gaunt man who couldn't speak throw his whole weight against the man who sold him.
You're under arrest. You're under arrest.
Elf, his pale gray eyes empty against the floor. The calculating light he wore for a year extinguished under a marshal's knee. The empire he built on a hanger and a hammer folds into the marble. Antique gold light and silence reclaim the auction house. Desmond's silver cufflink skitters across the marble and catches the gold light as two marshals press him flat, and his perfect posture folds into the floor. Face down on the cold marble, the poise that ruled boardrooms leaves him. The polished menace drains out like lamplight fading from the veins of stone. The silver cufflink catches antique gold as it's wrenched to the floor. The small polished weapon of his vanity finally clinking against cold stone. Hauled to his knees on the marble, the man who faked a death and sold a cousin cannot straighten. The poise that built the fraud is gone from his frame. The corridor holds him small against its marble. Antique gold light washing a man who once commanded rooms, now pressed flat and ordinary under federal hands. The silver cufflink vanishes under steel. The last immaculate set of his shoulders drops. Elegance traded for a cuff on a cold gold-lit floor. Smugness goes out of his face like a lamp guttered. The gold light finds only sweat and slack marble where menace used to.
It was never personal. Only arithmetic. You were right. He was worth it.
Her hands keep the wool pressed to the wound. The dark red slows. Her steady palms do the work her gentle voice could not. His eyes drift shut, then find her again. The ghost of a smile holds. The gold light blooms and dies across the face of a man who chose the bullet. Tears find her face only after her hands already know. Quiet strength kneeling in the gold emptiness, pressing life back into a man who took the round. He reaches for her hand, and the strength leaves him inches short. The wool keeps the wound. The gold light keeps its hush, and the price is plain on the marble. Not bravado, but something finally unguarded settles into his face. The gold light rocks with his shallow breath, and the steel in him softens to a smile. The marble emptiness opens around them. A kneeling teacher, a fallen heir, a bloodied cream cardigan, and the gold light standing witness where words have ended. The hands that teach 9-year-olds to read now hold a man's life in cream wool. Steadiness is the only lesson the marble lets her give. She holds his gaze until his smile finally reaches his eyes. Gold light steadies the long beat. The cool marble corridor for once holds a warm thing. The corridor finds its rest, a soaked navy shirt, a cream cardigan, and a smile he never allowed himself. The gold light stops
He's downstairs. Full security detail with him.
A tall, silver-haired patriarch steps from a black town car and lets his steel-gray eyes climb the building. His distinguished face betraying nothing, his pocket watch catching the gold. He settles the pocket watch chain with the slow authority of a man who built an empire, then walks forward. The gold light parts for him, and age bends nothing. His steel-gray eyes read the broken glass, the abandoned paddles, the dark stain at the corridor. The lobby spends its silence on a man who answers in iron. Charlotte lowers the phone as he crosses the marble toward her. One short nod, no words. The security detail closes the doors behind the returning patriarch. He walks the long lobby alone. The marble emptiness opens around his silhouette, the pocket watch chain, the only motion. The patriarch goes to meet what the night left behind. One polished shoe finds the first stair. His steel-gray eyes lift toward the gold corridor above. The ascension of the patriarch, slow and unbending, begins. Charlotte lowers the phone as he climbs. Her sharp composure softens for one unguarded beat. The cover the night denied them walks back in, unbending on the marble. In the lobby, Charlotte raises the phone, voice DI and cracked. The cane detail rolled up, unannounced, through the gold front light. He stepped out slow, silver hair unchanged, the pocket watch chain catching the gold light the way it always had. The building held its breath. Charlotte met him at the revolving doors, no words yet, just the long look, the chain-catching light, the quiet, unbending walk that came back. They wheeled him past the gold spill of the lobby toward the cold blue bay, the broad shoulders that braced the night now sinking into steel. His hand found the rail and held, the dark navy still stained to dried blood red, the only thing all night he couldn't brace fast enough. Then a broad hand rose flat in their path, silver-haired, unbending, and the gurney stilled under a father who had crossed an ocean to find this. He looked at the wound once, his face closed like a vault set in stone. 8 weeks of silence drained into a single, unblinking stare. He said nothing, not to the medics, not to his son, only stood, hand on the rail, the way a man stands at the edge of a thing he can't undo. The ghost of Damien's earlier smile surfaced. I was right, worth it. Then the mask came up, and the blue took the word from his mouth. The nod came smallest, almost missed, the go-ahead, and the gurney rolled on under the blue, the vault of his face never reopening. He let it pass. The watch chain swung once, a metronome of 8 weeks' silence, and his broad back held the gold light while everything else went blue. Then the silver chain stilled, and he turned back toward the building, toward the gold, toward whatever waited inside that had drawn him home. Charlotte fell in behind without a word. The patriarch was already moving again, the gold light falling in long panels ahead of his return. Inside the old auction house, a lamp still burned gold, and at the wall stood someone he had buried in his mind a full year ago, in a bloodied gray suit. The Lot 7 tag still rode his wrist, the blood there another man's. He stood like a cornered thing again, except now he remembered why. The authority held a beat, then gave a whole year of grief, struck dumb in a single flicker of the old man's steel gray eyes. 5 steps in, he stopped mid-stride. The coat still swung once behind him, and the whole vast marble floor went silent around a man and his son's long-buried friend. His thumb found the 07 on the dried blood leather, the only name they left him, and offered it up to the light toward the man in the door. The silver-haired shoe came down slow, the watch chain slackened, and the steel gray gaze climbed from the tag at his wrist up to the boy's face. 2 figures stilled at opposite ends of the gold pool. The boy with no voice, the patriarch with 8 weeks of silence, the marble holding its breath. The steel gray eye held, went wet, then hardened back, the patriarch cracking and reforging in a single bat of the lashes beneath the old gold. 1 stride, then he stopped again, close enough now to see the scar above the boy's brow that wasn't there at 7 years old. Then the boy's blue eyes lifted, not guarded now, not broken, and the patriarch saw at once the child he'd lost and the man who'd come back.
I knew that boy since he was 7. I was told he was dead.
Own words caught him then, the stated fact, the year of grief. And for one beat, the unbending shoulders drew up beneath the charcoal wool. Across the gold hush, the boy's bloodied hand lifted an inch in answer, the smallest hello from a dead man. And the room let the patriarch's words stand.
I've known that boy since he was 7. They told me he was dead.
Across the room, the dead boy heard himself named at last. The steel gray eyes found him and held. Bella heard the patriarch name a living ghost, and the cream cardigan felt suddenly too thin for what she'd done.
I've known that boy since he was 7. They told me he was dead.
His hand, the one that built an empire, opened and closed once at his side, like it wanted to hold a small boy's. No one in the gold-lit room moved. Not the marshals, not the lawyer, not the blood-streaked boy against the wall.
I've got that. I've known that boy since he was 7.
He was told the boy was dead. He had carried that small coffin of a lie across an ocean and back. Charlotte stepped forward and laid the falsified flight manifest on the marble. Then the guard's sworn confession beside it. The financial trails came next. Shell company ledgers, signed transfers, the signature that matched the cousin's name. Augustus took the manifest first, the way a man takes a bone. Deliberately, knowing it would break something. He read the way he built an empire, line by line, no hurry, the rats showing themselves in the margins. The Singapore routing was a child's forgery to a man who smelled rats at 50 paces. His jaw tightened. The guard's confession named the cousin in his own handwriting. The patriarch's thumb pressed the signature flat. Charlotte watched the old man read the way a surgeon watches a scan. She knew he had already seen the tumor. He set the last page down and looked at the lawyer the way a foreman looks at a good apprentice. Every page in that stack was a nail, and the patriarch had just counted them all before the coffin was built. He folded the manifest once, cleanly, the way he folded treaties, and the room understood the cousin was already finished.
8 weeks locked down in Zurich on a fraudulent hold penance. His doing.
The federal marshals had not known a cane was detained. The older one's pen stopped halfway down his notepad. Bella understood then why the calls went unanswered. There had been no one left at the top to pick up the phone.
8 weeks locked down in Zurich on a fraudulent hold attack. His doing.
Part. He had been cut off like a wire to a fuse, inert, while the cousin lit every fire he'd left unattended. Charlotte had traced the Zurich manifest herself. Hearing him confirm it, her sharp face gave one small nod. The patriarch stood a little straighter then, the Empire's full weight settling back onto shoulders the cousin had thought emptied. He was no one's detainee now. The 48 days a ghost in Zurich had cost the cousin the whole empire. 8 weeks in a Zurich holding suite, a regulatory hold that existed nowhere on paper. The cousin's quietest blade, a bogus hold, a forged manifest, a son shot. The cousin had built a clean cage around the patriarch. Charlotte's brief bound the trafficking ring, the sabotage, and the fraud into a single federal count. Augustus's testimony anchored the conspiracy, the Zurich cage, the forged crash, the inventory he was never meant to outlive. Trafficking, sabotage, conspiracy to murder, fraud against a corporate officer. The brief listed every charge at once. Each name Charlotte had pulled from a guard's confession now matched a dated lot in the ring's own ledger. Augustus read the 4 counts twice and said nothing. The steel in his back answered for him. She sealed the brief the way a lawyer seals a case she already knows she has won. Augustus signed each affidavit with the unhurried weight of a man naming crimes he intends to outlast. Charlotte carried the brief downstairs to the waiting marshals. The federal case no longer a request, but a count. Every trail led back to one signature, and Augustus at the high place was waiting for it to arrive. Charlotte called down to the marshals. The warrant, expedited at last, would hold every count the brief now carried. Between the patriarch's testimony and the lawyer's brief, the federal case closed like a vault around the cousin. Desmond Cole came down the lobby steps in cuffs, the polished menace finally stripped from his face. Augustus stood at the top of the steps, the steel in his eyes unbending as the cousin passed below. Behind him, Adrian came, the auctioneer, ledger reader of Lot 7, hands cuffed behind his tailored back. The silver cufflink caught the gold light as his wrists locked, the last polish left on him. Desmond's pale gray eyes lifted once toward the high stair. The patriarch's gaze did not flicker. Auctioneer and architect, in matching cuffs, were led across the marble in 2 separate silences. Augustus exhaled once, behind closed eyes, the vault of his face sealing shut again the moment they opened. The smug half-smile was gone. Something colder than the streetlight had already entered Desmond's face. The auctioneer said nothing on his way out. The ledger of lots now closed against him. 2 federal sedans at the curb. Augustus watched them close, then turned back into the gold light alone.
You sold my son's friend like inventory. You shot my son! Get on your knees!
You sold his son's friend like inventory. Now get on your knees.
You shot my son. Get on your knees and tell a judge. You sold his friend like inventory. You shot my son. On your knees.
The polished menace drains from his face at last. His impeccable posture folds, and the smug half-smile he wore, like armor, simply dies. Augustus stands above him at the top of the steps, the steel in his eyes unbending, and waits for the Empire's last man to...
You sold his friend like inventory. You shot my son. On your knees.
Word. The silver cufflink that once caught every boardroom's light now goes dull beneath the gold lamp, and nothing polished remains in...
You shot my son. Get on your knees and tell a judge.
He kneels, and the gold light gutters across the empty marble where an empire's name is being stripped from every door. He is loaded into the federal vehicle, the last light leaving his pale gray eyes, his smug half-smile finally irreversibly gone. The polished menace that passed for charm has drained completely. Only a hollow, cuffed man rides away in that back seat. Céline, pulled from the gathered crowd as a material witness, lowers her gaze and says nothing, the mocking smile already a memory. Marshals load him into the federal sedan, and the silver cufflink that once announced him disappears beneath his jacket for good. She lowers her gaze and gives the silence nothing. No denial, no plea, only the emerald dress fading into the dark. His silver cufflink catches one last thread of the lobby's gold light, then dark, and the polished menace is sealed away for good. Pulled down those gold-lit steps as a material witness, she lowers her gaze and says nothing, her confidence gone with the man. The federal vehicle carries the last light from his eyes out into the city dark. The auction ring's architect shipped like his own inventory. She disappears into an unmarked car, eyes down, mouth shut. The emerald dress the only trace of the woman who bid on lot 07. The smug half-a-smile he wore through every betrayal is finally, irreversibly gone. Only cold, pale gray vacancy rides away in that back seat. Celine, pulled from the gathered crowd as a material witness, lowers her gaze once and keeps it lowered, saying nothing to the end. At the hospital, Bella sits beside Damien's bed through the long hours. Her cream cardigan and his steady pulse, the whole world she needs. Julian stands at the foot of the bed, the still man he tried to shield now, the reason he's alive at all, his guarded face watching. A nurse cuts the Lot 7 tag from his wrist at last, the dried blood leather that marked him as merchandise for over a year. The nurse places the cut tag into Bella's hand, and the weight of the thing she bought for her savings finally makes full sense. Across the bed, their eyes meet. The woman who bought a stranger for her savings, and the man who remembers everything she gave him back. Damien sleeps. The round meant for someone else stopped in his own body, his broad protector's hands finally at rest beside hers. She holds the cut tag and lifts her eyes, the price of the smallest kindness she ever chose, settling into the palm of her hand. The Lot 7 tag rests in her open hand at last, a mute record of a man unmade, now quietly, finally laid to rest. Hospital hush, gold morning light. A nurse's scissors part the dried blood leather from his wrist. The year's last shackle. Bella receives the small tag into her palm, its faded gold 07 catching the window light one final time.
The price tag is off. He's not lot 07 anymore.
Damien's gaze moves slow from Julian at the bed's foot to Bella's tears, and the words land soft, certain. Julian stands very still at the foot of the bed. Something behind his light blue eyes unlocks at Damien's quiet verdict. Bella's hand closes around the leather tag as she hears it. The first mercy this room has offered.
The price tag is off. He's not lot 07 anymore.
Over Bella's shoulder, we see Damien's mouth curve, a ghost of the guarded man, softened by the morning. Julian's hand finds the bed rail. His knuckles go white, then slowly ease. A name returned to him at last.
No more price tags. He's not lot 07 pay, not anymore.
Bella breathes out a year of held breath. The cream cardigan, stained dark at the shoulder, rises and falls. The tag rests quiet in her cardigan pocket now. A thing survived, not a thing owned.
My name is Julian. I'd like my company back.
The words come halting, dredged from deep water, but they hold. The first full sentence the room has heard from him. Bella's fingers press to her mouth. The sound that escapes her is not grief, but something older. Relief. Damien, propped on one elbow, watches the gaunt man find his voice and lets the smallest nod lead.
I am who I say I am. I want what's mine back.
Each word lands like a door reopening in a long-shuttered house, slow, heavy, and irretrievable. The scar above his eyebrow catches the gold light as his mouth shapes the syllables a second time, certain now. He turns from the window to Bella and Damien, and for the first time his guarded face is openly, simply his own. The room holds its breath around the reclaimed name, the quiet, after a long storm, finally breaking. Bella rises from the chair, the leather tag warm in her closed hand, and steps back to give him the room. Morning gold falls full across the bed, where two men and a word returned sit together in the silence after. Charlotte slips her hand over Damien's on the white sheet, small, unremarked, seen only by the doorway. Bella watches from the threshold, and a quiet smile crosses her face, the first that has nothing to hide behind. She steps back into the corridor light, leaving them their small belonging. The tag in her pocket, finally just a tag. Charlotte Reeves takes Damian Kane's hand at his bedside. A small gesture, unremarked by everyone except Bella Kane, who watches from the doorway, and Charlotte Reeves takes Damian Kane's hand at his bedside. A small gesture, unremarked by everyone except Bella Kane, who watches from the doorway, and Charlotte Reeves takes Damian Kane's hand at his bedside. A small gesture, unremarked by everyone except Bella Kane, who watches from the doorway, and Charlotte Reeves takes Damian Kane's hand at his bedside. A small gesture, unremarked by everyone except Bella Kane, who watches from the doorway, and Charlotte Reeves takes Damian Kane's hand at his bedside. A small gesture, unremarked by everyone except Bella Kane, who watches from the doorway, and Charlotte Reeves takes Damian Kane's hand at his bedside. A small gesture, unremarked by everyone except Bella Kane, who watches from the doorway, and Charlotte Reeves takes Damian Kane's hand at his bedside. A small gesture, unremarked by everyone except Bella Kane, who watches from the doorway, and Augustus Kane places a call to Ashford Global's board. By morning, the fraudulent succession is voided, the accounts unfrozen, and Desmond Cole's name, stripped. Augustus Kane places a call to Ashford Global's board. By morning, the fraudulent succession is voided, the accounts unfrozen, and Desmond Cole's name, stripped. Augustus Kane places a call to Ashford Global's board. By morning, the fraudulent succession is voided, the accounts unfrozen, and Desmond Cole's name, stripped. Augustus Kane places a call to Ashford Global's board. By morning, the fraudulent succession is voided, the accounts unfrozen, and Desmond Cole's name, stripped. Augustus Kane places a call to Ashford Global's board. By morning, the fraudulent succession is voided, the accounts unfrozen, and Desmond Cole's name, stripped. Augustus Kane places a call to Ashford Global's board. By morning, the fraudulent succession is voided, the accounts unfrozen, and Desmond Cole's name, stripped. Augustus Kane places a call to Ashford Global's board. By morning, the fraudulent succession is voided, the accounts unfrozen, and Desmond Cole's name, stripped. Augustus Kane places a call to Ashford Global's board. By morning, the fraudulent succession is voided, the accounts unfrozen, and Desmond Cole's name, stripped. Augustus Kane places a call to Ashford Global's board. By morning, the fraudulent succession is voided, the accounts unfrozen, and Desmond Cole's name, stripped. Augustus Kane places a call to Ashford Global's board. By morning, the fraudulent succession is voided, the accounts unfrozen, and Desmond Cole's name, stripped. Bella Kane returns to school with Mateo, freed in the warehouse raid and unharmed. He sits front row and draws a helicopter, and Bella Kane returns to school with Mateo, freed in the warehouse raid and unharmed. He sits front row and draws a helicopter, and Bella Kane returns to school with Mateo, freed in the warehouse raid and unharmed. He sits front row and draws a helicopter, and Bella Kane returns to school with Mateo, freed in the warehouse raid and unharmed. He sits front row and draws a helicopter, and Bella Kane returns to school with Mateo, freed in the warehouse raid and unharmed. He sits front row and draws a helicopter, and Bella Kane returns to school with Mateo, freed in the warehouse raid and unharmed. He sits front row and draws a helicopter, and Bella Kane returns to school with Mateo, freed in the warehouse raid and unharmed. He sits front row and draws a helicopter, and Bella Kane returns to school with Mateo, freed in the warehouse raid and unharmed. He sits front row and draws a helicopter, and Bella Kane returns to school with Mateo, freed in the warehouse raid and unharmed. He sits front row and draws a helicopter, and Mateo came back front row, unharmed. The helicopter he drew in the margins this time landed safe. She teaches fractions to the boy the state lost track of first. This time he stays. This time they all stay.
It didn't cost everything. It bought it all back.
The Lot 7 tag still rests against her heart. It no longer weighs the way it used to. She looks back at the room that nearly broke her. Children's voices still fill it, unhurried, Ordinary, whole. The change jar for glue sticks still sits on the sill. She smiles because the fractions still need teaching. The empty space where the tag once sat no longer aches. The wood is just warm wood again. For the first time in 3 months, her shoulders fall without a name to chase, a gun to fear. She teaches halves the way she taught a mute man to find his whole again. Patiently, daily, kind. She carries the tag not as a burden, but as proof. Proof the kindest thing she ever did not begin in price. Mateo's helicopter lands on its line. So does she. So does the man she bought for her savings. The kindest thing she ever did didn't cost everything. It bought it all back. She finally lets herself believe it. Antique gold light falls across the empty space where the tag once weighed her down. Only wood and silence now. She marks workbook margins the way she once marked a stolen notepad, quietly, certain of the small good ahead. A child's pencil marks the safe landing the first sketch never had. She taught that line. He drew it whole. Evening gold returns the way the first shot began. Warm, silent, certain of the small good ahead. She lets her hand fall from the pocket. The tag stays. The weight no longer asks to be carried. Bella still teaches fractions in the room built for 20. Now the children stay. Now the numbers hold. Her days narrow back to glue sticks and fractions, and she would not trade them now for any auction hammer on earth. A green marble sits where the dried blood leather once lay. What weighed her down is now a child's small treasure. The crying on her kitchen floor 3 months ago finally finds its rest here, in her own chair, in the gold she earned. Antique gold light rests where the tag once weighed. A child's voice recites a fraction she taught. Silence. Fade to black.